Did you?
Somewhere in the middle.
Oh, I feel so good.
He's the guy that runs all the recycling. Makes all of those recycling. Like all of those and does
On time to achieve.
all the solutions.
No, but as far as the questions, like, what questions?
Thank you.
Switching it up this year. That's not a bad thing, I don't think.
This will be the same deal. Done fast.
Sounds good.
Raise your hand if you have cards to submit back to us.
Thank you. Okay, I think we will start. It's 10 o'clock and we've got just an hour and there are quite a few of you here. So and I've got a pocket full of questions. So we'll see. Some of you have been here before, some of you, this is your first time. We'll go through the drill for just a few seconds. We have Representative Carter Nordman of the Iowa 47th House District and State Senator Jesse Green of the 24th Senate District. Carter's district covers, let's see, Greene, Guthrie, and kind of the northwest quarter of Dallas County.
Yep.
And Jesse covers that area, plus the 48th district, which also includes Boone County and the little nubbin of Story. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay,
South of Highway 30 and then west of 35.
okay. And Carter is chair of the House Education Committee, and Jesse is chair of the Senate Local Government Committee. Those are two of the most important committees in the Iowa legislature. Appreciate your work on that.
Education Appropriations Committee.
Education Appropriations Committee, which is still a very important committee. Okay, and both are Republicans. Jesse was elected in 2020 and Carter in 2022.
Nope, 2020.
2020.
Yep, came in the same time.
All right. Both still relatively new.
Yes, yep.
Okay. I'm going to call them Carter and Jesse because that's quicker and easier than Representative Nordman and Senator Green. They'll each give a few remarks about themselves and then end the session that's going on. And then they'll respond to your written questions. And I've got a bunch of written questions here. We won't take any oral questions from the floor. But if you feel that your written question has not been answered directly to the question that you asked, you can out yourself and do a follow-up if you wish. Okay? Because we have a significant stack of questions, please respect the time available. Try not to go on and on. I'm talking about people out there, but you guys too. And I have, some of the questions are of course kind of duplicates on the same topic. So I'll try to pick out questions on as many different topics as are included as possible to give them a chance to speak to the issues. And a final thing, of course, we're not in debate mode. This is not the floor of Congress, so be civil. I hate to have to exercise my right to physically take you out because I'm 82 and I don't exercise much anyway. So let's start out. Carter, how about you first?
Yeah, well, I say first let's give Rick a round of applause because he's...
Any other questions that I can get to Rick? Any more questions, anybody?
We appreciate you, Rick, and thanks for doing this for us. My name's Carter Nordman. Just out of curiosity, how many people have been to one of these before? So just about everyone good. Love to hear that. I think these are extremely important. It helps Jesse and I understand the issues of our constituents, making sure that we're understanding the issues of our district, so we can go back to Des Moines and then take those back with us directly. So appreciate you being here. I think this is really important. Like Rick said, I'm serving my second term in the Iowa House. Be my 4th year. I serve on a few different committees, but I chair the Education Appropriations Committee. I also sit on the Judiciary Committee, the Commerce Committee, Local Gov Committee, and then the Full Appropriations Committee. So a lot of my time is spent on the budget and specifically the money that we spend on education here in the state of Iowa. That's kind of about me. I will be running for re-election again, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask for your support. Hopefully I can earn some votes here today, but I also want to make it clear that whether you vote for me or not, my phone's always open. I want to hear from you, regardless if you're a Republican, a Democrat. Vote for me or don't vote for me. So you're all my constituents, and I appreciate you being here. I do just want to start off by kind of giving a rundown, opening on what our budget looked like this last month and kind of what those numbers are, and then I'll let Jesse go and speak on some other issues. But the state revenue did rise in January, which is kind of a surprise, with tax reductions and multiple blizzards. That kept a lot of Iowans inside and weren't spending as much money, but obviously they were. Through the first 7 months of the fiscal year, which started in July of 2023, net general fund receipts are 2.1% higher than fiscal year 2023. This figure is ahead of the last forecast from the Revenue Estimating Conference. Last December, the 3-member panel projected state revenues would decline by 1.3% for the fiscal year. So far looking pretty good. Personal income tax collections are below the previous year's receipts, but that is to be expected as we did have that 2022 tax cut come into full effect. Sales and use tax collection rose in January despite the Arctic-like weather. Sales tax collections came in $35.6 million higher than what we collected in January of last year. And then corporate income tax revenues was slightly lower in January than the previous year's level. For the month, payments totaled $70.4 million. That's about a $2.5 million reduction from last year in January. And even with January's decline, though, corporate tax revenues are in line with the REC forecast of rising 1.5% this year. So I say that because it doesn't get a lot of attention, and I think it's important that Iowans know as we continue to look at tax cuts, how that affects our budget as well. So I'll hand over to Jesse.
Yeah, thanks. This is a great turnout. I do quite a few forums. We do one in Nora, Fort Dodge, Ames, and this is one of the most active ones. So be proud and thanks for being involved. I first got elected in 2020. I think it's a fun stat. I never hear Carter talk about it, but I'm the youngest Republican in the Senate, and he's the youngest Republican in the House. So I think that's kind of cool. But I sit on Natural Resources, Ag. Just recently got put on International Relations. That's a really fascinating committee. Chair of Local Government, and I sit on Appropriations. So when I first got elected, I went to leadership and I asked to be on as many committees the first 2 years as possible. And then after the first 2 years, they reassigned committees. And so then I asked to be on the committees that I wasn't previously on. So before I was on Ways and Means, which is tax policy, and then I asked to be put on Appropriations so I could learn more about the budgeting process. So hopefully by the end of 4 years, I get kind of a good grip of what's going on in all committees. I'd like to just do a rundown of what I've seen in each committee that's been of interest to some people, and then we'll go from there. In Natural Resources, that's kind of been a pretty quiet committee, but one issue that came up, I sat on a subcommittee for Senate Study Bill 3103, and what that bill did is it required, if you have a complaint against a landowner or a neighbor for water, like let's say manures going into a river or whatever, that you would be required to put your name on it. And in the subcommittee process, my philosophy has always been the same. I don't like to kill a bill unless I absolutely have to. The subcommittee is, to me, is an educational opportunity. It's put a bill forward, get the experts to the table, and then talk about possible amendments. My other philosophy is, this wasn't my personal bill, but my other philosophy is to start broad bill and then narrow it down through the process to get to the heart of it. So I had issues with that bill in the beginning. For one, let's say you catch somebody poaching and you file a complaint against that poacher, they figure out your name. I mean, that's kind of, that could be a very bad situation. So that was the first thought that came to my mind. The second thought is like, why not set up something where, let's say somebody complains against the same landowner 2 or 3 times, then DNR goes out there and nothing is wrong. Like putting a stop at that, like putting a cap on how many times an individual can complain against another individual for, it's, at what point does it become harassment? So I see what the intent of the bill is, but it definitely needs to be amended. I was really glad that we passed foreign ownership of land. So in Iowa, we have some really good laws in regards to foreign ownership of land, but in the past 20 years, you've seen a lot more LLCs buying property. And it's roughly about 50% of LLCs that we don't know exactly who it is that owns that property. And so what we need to do is we need to create a step at the purchasing time with the Secretary of State to know exactly who's connected with an LLC at that time. With the bill that we pass, if a foreign corporation owns more than 250 acres, they have to report twice a year, and any changes with the corporation, any changes in ownership, and what the purpose of their ownership is. So I think it's a good bill, and it should be debated on the floor pretty soon. One thing I was personally involved with was the Butchery Innovation Grant. If you remember in 2020, we had issues with meat processing. There's a very obvious problem that we can use more lockers in the state of Iowa, and we can use expansion of lockers. And so Representative Thompson and I kind of spearheaded that effort to create a Butchery Innovation Grant where small lockers can apply and expand their lockers, and it's been a real good hit. We've seen 36 new lockers in the state since 2020. And to put that in perspective, we have about 150 state lockers in the state of Iowa. The one thing that I see that is happening though is that there's a lot of new lockers that are struggling right now and not getting enough business. This is a combination of a couple factors. One is this is the lowest amount of cows that we've seen in the United States since the 1960s. I think that's a pretty alarming stat. Second, after COVID, a bunch of people went out and bought like real bulk of meat products. And so there's kind of been a real up and down in the meat processing business for lockers ever since COVID. So I think it's going to take a little bit more time to let the dust settle and see how the market shakes out with that. Lastly, and then anything that doesn't get hit, I'm assuming that some things are going to get brought up in conversation. Anything that doesn't get hit, I'd like to be able to hit at the end. One of my personal bills is a school properties bill. It's throughout the year, I've heard complaints from around the state where certain public schools are not selling to private schools just because they're a private school. They would rather choose to bulldoze the property than give the private school the option. You see a situation happening up in Cedar Falls where there's a waiting list of 300 kids to go into the private school, and the new high school that's going up, the new public high school that's going up, sees that this private school has an opportunity and they're just refusing to sell to them. I think there's fundamentally something wrong with that where I think accredited private schools should have a shot at an educational facility. Otherwise, that's a big waste of taxpayer dollars, in my opinion. So that's one bill I'm shepherding through the Senate. There's also a companion in the House. The governor also has her own version of that bill as well. So with that, anything that I don't have here on my list, I'll hit at the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
One last question, anybody else? One last,
And you found those waters back there. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Apparently the bill, or the area that's sparks the most interest is libraries. We've got a dozen questions on libraries.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start out, Jesse, this one's for you.
Go.
I'm concerned about the library legislation. Did the libraries of city councils at Harcourt, Lehigh, or Dayton ask you to propose it? Who asked for it? It seems like revenge based on the Pella library vote last year.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware of the Pella situation until subcommittee in the House the other day. Since I chair the local government committee, I pay close attention to what my supervisors are talking about, what my city councils and city administrators are talking about. And one thing that's happened in our property tax reform is local governments are saying, it's pretty unfair for you to expect us to restrain our spending, but then you have these unfunded mandates that you expect us to levy for. And so the 6 cent minimum levy, which is the 6 cent levy that was in my original bill, is one of those unfunded mandates that some local government officials will allude to. The irony is that the average counties levy about 15 cents. So that 6 cent doesn't even, it's kind of a number that doesn't really mean anything. The Boone County, I think, is the lowest county in our area, which is like 7.5 cents is what they levy. But what I don't appreciate is like, if local government officials are saying, hey, this is one example of an unfunded mandate, I know what they're telling their constituents as well, that we are forcing them to spend money and kind of shift the blame for reckless spending onto us. And so multiple people have promised that if we hear of an unfunded mandate, we will have a conversation about that unfunded mandate. So as chair of local government, I felt it was my responsibility to file that bill. It's a study bill, and to find out the conversation on that. It was through that process that I figured out what different counties are levying, what different cities are levying, and I learned a lot through that process. I sat down with library board directors. I sat down with 35 of them, and had about an hour and a half conversation with them. After that, I decided to strike out the levy portion and just focus on the ordinance portion, which is if a city council or somebody is running into a toxic situation in regards to buildings or personnel issues, that by ordinance instead of referendum, that they could take care of that situation. And automatically the conversation goes to contents, and contents it has zero, from my vantage point, has nothing to do with this bill from the reasons why I brought it. I'll read the bill to you right here. It's 4 lines. A council may oversee and change the practice relating to hiring a library director and utilizing monies collected pursuant to section 8A.222 by ordinance and without a referendum. That's the bill. There's nothing about contents. That was not my intent of bringing that. So through that, my goal was to empower local governments, and as local chair, as a representative of this district, I felt it was my responsibility to bring that bill forward.
Okay?
Can we just speak on the same?
Yeah, I've got
Can
one
I ask
for,
a
I've got
follow-up?
one for you here.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Is that your question?
No.
No? No?
It's
You
my
can- you can
question, I
follow
would
up.
allow her to ask a follow-up.
There you go. Okay.
If everyone thinks that there might be a local issue in which a city library board and a city council are having some sort of disagreement about how things are being run, then why go and open up Iowa code that has been working for decades? Why not just have the city council and the library board actually sit and talk this out together? Much like what happened when you met with librarians in Des Moines, you saw their side of the story and pulled a portion of that bill. I guess I would just argue that local control has been working for public libraries across Iowa. I don't understand the need to open up code.
So we have a companion bill.
I know.
Okay.
So, I guess one of the biggest disappointments to me through this, for this bill, is how the Iowa Library Association have conducted themselves. They have,
What? Are you kidding me?
Ma'am?
absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. They have lied to their members. They have lied to small city councils. They have essentially lied to the public. I have screenshots of their Facebook page saying, keep Iowa library boards local. What isn't local about a city council? They have also told members that this bill would automatically make a city council take over a library board. That is not true. They would have to, by ordinance, change the way it's operated. The Iowa Library Association has acted in bad faith when it comes to stirring up fear in the public. A lot of the things that they have said to their members are not true. And so I am disappointed with the Iowa Library Association. I will even go as a step further and say, I could not care less about the content or programs in a public library. Maybe as this goes through committee, we will have a conversation about tightening the language up and making sure that the only thing that a city council can, like Jesse just read his bill, the only thing the city council can take over is the operations and personnel matter. We have had a number of city administrators, city council members, and mayors reach out to us with a number of stories of issues that they have at their libraries because of the library board. One instance, a city council who pays the utility bill for the building of the library wanted to put solar panels on the library. The library board denied them and said, we don't like the aesthetic. They are trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, of which they pay the utility bill of the library. The library board said no, because we don't like the aesthetic. Or another instance, a library board didn't like the replacement dollar amount that an insurance company gave to them. What'd they do? They decided not to pay the premiums anymore. City council, hands tied. Next, they had to wait till the next budgeting year to take that out of their budget to pay the premiums. There are a number of stories like that around Iowa where the city councils who are trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars have been held up by the library boards. We don't care about the content in the libraries and the public libraries. Period. The Iowa Library Association has made the argument that that's all this is about. They are wrong.
Carter, here's one for you, same subject, maybe you've just answered it. Iowa's library boards of trustees operate with a unique but important sense of autonomy, and for many decades, a procedure has been in place allowing change to this structure. This is done only through a referendum. Please discuss your views on HSB 768 relating to city council oversight of library dollars and director. I guess the operative point there is, why isn't the current system with the referendum sufficient to handle it?
Yeah, there was a good example that I received from a city administrator of a small town. They had a great board of trustees and wouldn't want to change anything other than the makeup of the board. They had, I believe, 7 members. They wanted 6 of them to be residents of the incorporated city, and they wanted 1 rural representation from the county. That one library served pretty much as the county library. So they had to have a full referendum just to change the makeup of the board to allow 6 incorporated members and 1 rural member. They thought this really should be able to be done by ordinance. We're now spending taxpayer dollars on a full referendum to change up 1 board seat because we have a phenomenal volunteer who wants to serve on this board, but now we have to have a full city referendum to do this. It was extremely hard to educate voters on this. Not a lot of people understand the makeup of a library board. You usually get lower participation in those elections. And so it was a lot of extra work for something that they were trying to do good and allowing a rural representation on that board who's been a great volunteer at the library. That right there shows me that things like that probably should be able to be done by ordinance. And let's just go all the way back here. Your city council are individuals who you vote on. They are elected. They have to serve for re-election every 4 years. They are the elected officials of the city. These boards, I served on a Parks and Rec board for 3 years. We were an advisory board to the council. We set a budget, we did personnel matters, management matters. All of those would go to the city council as a recommendation, and they would either take them, usually would take them. We had a great relationship with the council, or they would change them, or they'd send them back and ask us to start from scratch. If that's what a city council wants from a library board, maybe outside of content, we'll see how that conversation goes, then I think that's in their scope as the elected officials of the city.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
A quick question for you, just so I understand, and maybe the rest of us here. Under the proposed bill that both of you have, if a council elected to take control of the library, would the council then have the ultimate determination on what books are in the facility? You say that's not your intent? Fine. Would the council though have that power?
Well, we have two different bills. As written, if a council wanted to, yes, they probably could make content decisions.
Is that yours too, Jesse?
So I just read my bill. My subcommittees on Monday were on good one.
But under the bill as it now stands, you have two separate bills. Under your bill, would the council have the power to make
I
content
believe it
decisions?
would. I believe it
It
would.
would, okay.
But I do want to note that every single story that I received from a city council member, from a city administrator, from a mayor, every single one of them have noted, we don't want anything to do with content. We just want good management practices. We have personnel matters that are cherry picking the employee handbook. They pick the ones that they want. They ignore the other ones that they don't. They are city employees. They just want to be able to manage the library personnel and facilities like they do the rest of the city. And I think that's very reasonable. And so, Rick, not only do every single one of those not want anything to do with content, but we're open to a conversation of maybe tightening up the language to ensure that we accomplish the goal that we're set out to do.
Okay. Scott, I'm gonna put you off because it's.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
And
I'm sorry.
we'll stick with that.
Okay, we'll go to the AEAs. We have 5 AEA questions, and if we have time, we'll come back to library questions after we get through the other section. Governor Kim Reynolds has indicated that she wants major changes made to the area education agencies, AEAs, which would seriously limit the services they offer. A large majority of Iowans have opposed this. How do you decide which view to support? The governor or your constituents that you are supposed to represent? That's for both of you, yes?
Okay, so there's definitely 3 different ideas that are floating around out there. The governor has her proposal, the House has a different idea, which I'm not sure on the details of what their thinking is, but they shut the governor's proposal down. The Senate still has a live round for next week, and I think we'll probably be debating it within committee next week. But the one thing I think is most common in the different, with the House, with the Senate, and with the governor, is that we are the only state that funds the service provider and mandates the customer to go to that service provider. And so when you go to a school board and you ask them the 3 or 4 line items that refer to the AEAs where the flow-through dollars go, the school boards don't know what that money exactly is going towards. And so I think the best thing that we can do in this situation, and I've talked to AEA directors, I've talked to school superintendents, I've talked quite a bit with Superintendent Brett Abbott. He's been a great resource. But what I would like to see is that the school boards have full control of those dollars and get the services to whom that they want. 99% of the services would still be with the AEA. Based on the research that I've done, I think the AEAs do a great job. I think some of the data that I've seen in regards to test scores and stuff like that, I don't know if I 100% trust it. I think we are getting great services. I think we are getting good results with that. But I am convinced with the data that I've seen that we are paying a huge price tag for that. And I think it all ties back to when you're the only state that requires a customer to get a service without paying for that service themselves. It's just ripe for abuse in that situation. And so even the AEA, the right people are at the table on this, and I think everybody's in agreement at least on that concept of some sort. So I think at the end of the day, we will get some sort of bill. I think it'll look somewhat like what I just said. So let Carter finish it.
Yeah, obviously, AEAs have been a very large part of the conversation this legislative session. I think, what are we on, week 5 now? And at least those first 3 weeks were spent mostly on AEAs. And I think there was great conversations. I've had a number of conversations with the governor, a number of conversations with a lot of my colleagues in the House. Ultimately, the House Education Committee decided not to move the governor's proposal forward. And so we are at a place where the House has decided that we are clicking reset on this conversation. What I will say is I do appreciate the governor bringing this forward. I think there are issues with the AEAs that need to be addressed. And I will say, even the AEA chiefs will say that. We brought the AEA, 3 of the AEA chiefs in to a meeting, and a number of my colleagues and I asked a number of questions of them. And the first question I asked is, do you believe that there is a proficiency gap with our special education students? A large one. All 3 of them agreed that there is a larger proficiency gap than there should be. Okay? We all agree that there's a problem now, including the AEAs. The second question was, do you believe that there could be reforms and should be reforms? All 3 of them. Yes, we believe that there should and can be some reforms. What those reforms are, that's a part of the conversation and part of the legislative process now. We had a study in 2011. That study indicated that we might have too many AEAs. I believe we originally had 13, we're now down to 9. I think 5 AEAs probably make more sense for the amount of students.
That's what the study said.
Yeah, and so we did this study. Everyone keeps asking for another study. We did a study in 2011. Not a thing was done with it. So we could keep doing study after study after study that keeps telling us the same thing. But if we don't act legislatively, what's the point in continuing to do a study? So, like I said, the House has hit reset on this, and I've been in constant contact with our superintendents around the district. And most of them fully agree that there needs to be changes when it comes to special education, and a lot of those changes need to happen at the AEAs. A lot of them believe that they could serve their special education students better at their local level if those flow through dollars stopped with them and they were able to pick and choose what services they go to the AAs, whether they go to a private company, whether they go to the rural hospital. So your superintendents agreed with this as well. Kind of the new roadmap for the AAs in the House, the conversation that's been going on is a couple bullet points that I've written down here. First is a timeline. I think what originally happened is there was this opt-in, opt-out. I understand what the governor was trying to do here, but I think it was confusing. I think it was confusing for the schools. And so that piece is coming out, and there needs to be a new timeline. All 3 services would remain at the AAs, the special education, the media, and the ed services. But the timeline, as far as the House is thinking, would be kind of a tiered implementing those tiered as far as the flow through dollars go. So maybe we start with the $33 million in media services, where we let that stop at the school, and the schools decide, all right, how am I going to operate or spend my media service dollars? Every superintendent that I've spoken to, they don't believe that they get the best bang for their buck when it comes to the media services that flow through the school to the AEAs. Some of them barely use the media services. And so they feel like that money is essentially being wasted. The students at their school are not getting to take advantage of that. And so this timeline would be more manageable, both for the AEAs and the schools. Second, the Department of Education oversight. We absolutely do need some more oversight on the AEAs. What we're kind of thinking is making sure that the Department of Ed oversight employees are on the ground, boots on the ground, they're at the AEAs, and they're just contracted with the Department of Ed. We've been recognized as a state that needs assistance. If we go down one more level that needs intervention, the federal government can and probably will come in and begin to start changing things for themselves. I don't think that's what we want. I think we best know how to manage our education services at a state level. But the biggest point is making sure that it's not a bunch of people in Des Moines. We want to make sure that they're people, individuals out in the field. Talked about the media services. One other thing I will say on that is in that meeting with the AEAs, the AEA chief said, we are not efficiently running our media services. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, was it appropriate to have 9 different printing stations at 9 different AEA locations? With technology now, probably one centralized printing station is more appropriate for all AEAs. You send in an order, they print it, they ship it out to you. Probably would be close to the same turnaround time as the current AEA system. And so the question to me is, all right, so the AEA chief says, yeah, we absolutely can do this and should do this. Why hasn't it been done? They have the authority to do it. They absolutely can do it. Why hasn't it been done? And so I think it opens up a door of what else is not being done? What other inefficiencies have they just not done because they want to remain the status quo? And so I would say the governor's proposal, we've tried to speak with the AEAs a number of times. We've attempted to get them to the table to talk about reforms. They haven't. This bill has brought them to the table. They are at the table, they are working with us, they understand that reforms need to take place, and they're helping with these reforms now. The last part of this is the salaries of chiefs. I think many of us can agree that the chiefs make too much. I think the Prairie Lakes chief total compensation package is north of $320,000 a year. That's about 1% of their budget. I think that if we want to be more realistic, we take the top 3 to 5 superintendents in that AEA district, we average those salaries, and that would be the cap that those chiefs could make. I think they've become a little top heavy. So that's what we're thinking in the House. This conversation most certainly will continue. I do appreciate the governor bringing it up because I think this is the first time in a long time that we've had a real conversation about AEAs. Sorry, Rick. And so I'll look forward to continuing those conversations, and I'll continue to update everyone through my newsletter and obviously answering your emails as questions come in and we move forward.
Thank you.
It was a little long-winded, sorry.
That's all right. Is the Greene County Community Schools Superintendent one of those with whom you have visited?
Absolutely. We just actually visited with him yesterday, and I'll let you talk to him on whether he agrees with it or not.
Oh, that's just wanted to know.
Yeah.
Iowa has a long history of nonpartisan elections for city councils and school boards. Please explain House Study Bill 633 relating to partisan elections for city and school offices, the rationale behind the bill, and the impact on the independent candidate.
So since I chair local government, I haven't seen the bill come through on the Senate side. I haven't heard anybody on my committee bring it forward. I haven't heard one local official bring it to me. I think I've gotten a total of 2 or 3 emails from constituents that are like, hey, I think this would be a good idea. But outside of that, I didn't feel any reason to file a study bill to have that conversation, so I haven't seen any action on that on my side.
Yeah, I believe it was my first or second year, we had a bill in state government that would have made city elections partisan. You know, I don't think that that's a good route to go. I know a number of folks would disagree with that. I would like city races to remain nonpartisan. I would say maybe when you get to your larger cities, your Des Moines, your Cedar Rapids, your Iowa City, maybe it would be more appropriate. I don't know. But as of right now, I don't think there's any momentum behind that bill, and I don't foresee it going anywhere.
I think it used to be Davenport was the only city in the state that has partisan.
And I think
elections.
they can do it now. I think they can opt into doing partisan. So yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. For each of you, give us one or two examples where you changed your mind on a bill, not because of the strength of the opposition to your position, but because the strength of the opposing argument convinced you to change your mind. In other words, you changed your mind intellectually rather than politically.
I'll say this, I would have to think about specific examples, but the way the legislative process works is we vote on hundreds of amendments a year, probably thousands of amendments a year that changes bills because of input that we've gotten. I'll say the AAA bill. There's been a number of things that I thought about AAs and the way they operated at the very beginning of this conversation. We're doing a lot of changes to this bill because of the feedback that we've gotten, because of what we've heard from constituents, both myself, Jesse, the governor. It's the feedback and listening to the people we represent. So I would say on a daily basis, we change our mind and the way we think on bills as we continue to hear more information and hear from experts.
Okay, thank you. Jesse?
So I think the question was specifically in regards to because of the opposition. Was that what it was?
I guess it's where you changed your mind because you actually thought the person who was arguing with you had a better position than yours, rather than that there were so many people that were pushing you to change that you changed because of the political.
Okay.
I think that's what.
Yeah, well, so it was certainly this AEA conversation. I came in with preconceived notions, and I look at the data, and I've changed my mind probably 3-4 times now. I mean, that's a heavy topic, and a lot of moving parts. The E15 bill was one not because of the opposition or anything like that, but I came in philosophically about no mandate, so to speak. Well, E15. That ethanol bill was a mandate. And so, but then I started researching out some of the grants that we do for retailers, and I went out and talked to the retailers and wanted to try to get consensus on where they were at on that. And once I felt that our grants were sufficient enough to take care of their needs, their infrastructure needs, to upgrade their facilities to accommodate E15, then I felt, I still had to plug my nose on that bill, but then I still felt that we had a fairly good policy. And ever since then, I've been a strong advocate for the small retailers to make sure that we fulfill our promises. One thing that was on the E15 bill, now I'm going down a rabbit trail, but and we had a mandate on there that they had to be done by 2026, if I remember right. It's just no way. We have 2,000 gas stations in the state of Iowa. 1,000 of them need upgraded, and last year alone we only had 31 upgraded. Like, we're not going to meet that mandate. So that was one reason I didn't like that bill. And so as I educated myself on the grant process and the monies that we provide $15 million now to small retailers to upgrade their infrastructure. I see that our cap is at $50,000. Well, it costs $150,000 to upgrade one thing, and so now I'm changing my mind on we need to increase that cap to get more activity within that thing, within that program. The other thing, you know, I was 100% gung-ho on term limits, and I'm fine with term limits on the state level, whatever, but on the national level, one thing I've seen is it takes a long time to get your mind around a lot of these issues. I came in with a farming perspective, ag perspective, and so I knew a little bit about that. But when I came in, the human resource staffer, the tax staffer, everybody's educating me on what they think. It's taken me a long time to just kind of get my feet under me as to how I think individually on some of these topics. This is my 4th year and I just started feeling comfortable. If that's true of me, think of somebody that goes to Washington and what they deal with. I bet it takes somebody, an average congressman, 6 to 8 years to begin to feel comfortable. And so unless you term out the staffers, I do not believe that you should be terming out those congressmen and senators in Washington. If you term the staffers and the congressmen out at the same time, then you might be onto something. But so my mind changed on that as well.
Okay. The facilities director's trying to get my attention. Bill, will you?
No,
You just have
I
15
was going
minutes.
to say with Alexa, just for closing.
Okay.
Well, while we're, any other questions? Do you need any more, Rick?
I don't need more. I can take it.
We got them. Very good, thank you.
Okay, okay.
Or maybe at least, maybe a topic.
Yeah, here's
That we want to touch on. You got a new one?
Got several new topics.
Let's do it.
All right. How do you see changes to save Iowa's soil and make chemical clean water? Is mitigation being done? Iowa has gone from 98% prairie to 94% row crops. Inches of soil and many chemicals like nitrogen are forming the dead zones.
Yeah, we have a long ways to go, but we have come a long ways. Let's just be realistic about this topic. So I started farming in 2003 or 2004 when I graduated high school, and at that time there was no cover crops that were being done. 10 years ago, you had 10,000 acres of cover crops that were being done. Now you have 4 million acres of cover crops being done since the last 10 years. That's a huge amount of change and a huge amount of change of attitude and perspective about that. I think about my dad who's retired now, what he has seen in his lifetime when he was a kid. They used to plow bean stubble every single year. You weren't a good farmer unless you plowed your bean stubble. You know, that's the mentality that he had, or his parents had when he was a kid. Then by the end of his lifetime, he felt from his perspective, and he was right, his generation came a long way. Me and him butt heads because I want him to go a lot further, but I gotta respect him. He's my dad, he's the boss. But there's a huge change in mentality from generation to generation. In the next few years, you're going to see a huge demographic shift in regards to farming, who owns the land, who's operating the land. I think with that, you're going to see a change in practices as well. And so I do think we need to respect where we've come from. Based on the data I've seen since the 1980s, we've had a third less runoff in phosphorus. But I will admit, based on the data I've seen, I think we have a nitrate problem. There's no doubt about that. And so we can talk about different methods and stuff like that, and I'm a firm believer. I have my set thing that I finally talked to my dad into side dressing. So we put 100 pounds of anhydrous on, and then we side dressed with Y drops at the end of July, about another 60 pounds or so. And I was just so excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna show my dad we're doing the right thing, you know? And then that fall, the stuff, we did side-by-side trials, and the stuff that I side dressed was 20 bushel less. And he looked at me, he's like, see, told you. You know, and I'm like, well, it was a bad year for Y drops. That's what it was. So anyway, I think in a lot of ways he's happy that I'm down in Des Moines arguing about practices than on the farm. So, but that being said, I do acknowledge we have a ways to go. We rank number 1 in wetlands. We rank number 1 in grass waterways. We rank number 1 in covered conservation tillage. And we rank number 1 in cover crops. So let's be grateful for that, and I will continue to have conversations.
I think that's the governor calling one of your, Barbara Nash, I'm gonna have to ask you about this, Barbara. What is your position on House Bill 678? You guys may know what that is, but I don't know.
I think you reversed the numbers.
Says
We
six,
were talking about it earlier.
says 678.
It's the library.
Yeah, okay, thanks, yeah.
Those not, just so everyone knows, if you ever send an email or whatnot, those House files and House study bills, they change numbers 6 or 7 times throughout the process. So if you say a number to me, I'm not gonna know what the bill is.
Well, we quit. That's well done.
What are your plans to solve mental health issues? Locally, this has led to bullying, kidnapping, drug use, domestic and worksite issues, theft, suicide. I think that's for both of you.
You want to start?
Mental health needs to be a priority. I think we've taken a lot of steps in the right direction these last few legislative sessions. I think the biggest hurdle that we face when it comes to mental health is the workforce, and we have workforce problems across every sector of our economy, but the workforce in our mental health field is really bad. I have a couple things that we've done in the last couple of years. I know I'm not on the Health and Human Service Committee, but I know that they just passed a children's mental health bill with unanimous support out of the HHS committee. This would provide or provides enhanced rate for psychiatric for institutions that care for children with specialized needs. Usually or often these institutions are turning away children with very high needs because they're very expensive to take care of. And so you have needs like history of aggression, diagnosis of intellectual or development disabilities, sexualized behaviors that need treatment, but they're so expensive to treat. We don't want them to continue to be turned away. So we enhance the rate on that. The governor is proposing a bill that currently we have 13 mental health regions and 19 substance abuse and gambling addiction regions. The argument could be made that we are not getting services to Iowans fast enough and good enough. Her proposal would to bring all of that in together and create 7 regions that would address all of those issues within the 7 regions. We've talked to a lot of providers and they say that the process and the system that we have now is not streamlined. It's very cumbersome, and so that they would like to see a system that an Iowan can work through much easier. So the governor does have a proposal on that. I will say one reason why I think this is probably a right direction is we see a lot of these regions not spending the money that's been allocated to them. And so a lot of times the argument's made, we'll just keep throwing money at them. Well, the money's not being spent because Iowans aren't getting the care. They're stuck in bureaucracy. And so really the main point of this bill is to streamline the process and hopefully get Iowans mental health care quicker. Just a couple other things. We created 12 new psychiatric residency programs at the University of Iowa last year. We created a $1 million loan forgiveness for new providers. I would be very much interested in raising that money if we have psychiatric students going into school and graduating. I think that is a good return on our investment. We eliminated non-competes with mental health professions to open up the market, and then also higher Medicaid rate for those needing higher level of care to help hospitals financially. So those are just a few things that we're doing. We're trying to take a multi-faceted approach to this because there's not just one answer.
Yeah, I think you did a good job covering it, but did you talk about the loan forgiveness program?
Just the $1 million one.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So after the Perry situation, I've talked to quite a few superintendents about quite a few issues regarding either school security, mental health of students and stuff like that. I think I didn't realize that it's already allowed that you can operational share mental health counselor between school districts. So I think we need to look more at getting providing funding for that if that's a barrier. I think it's not necessarily a funding issue, but more of a supply issue as far as psychiatrists. But I'd like to see more activity with the larger school districts being able to share their mental health providers with the smaller ones. But like Superintendent Abbott said, his provider is 100% busy within his own district, so he wouldn't be able to share them anyway. So I've got my eyes on that, and when the school security bill comes over from the House, I'm gonna try to have that conversation lumped in with it at that time. Anyway, that's the only thing I could add to that. Well, the other thing I would say is, I see more and more data all the time that screen time and cell phones are directly linked to mental health problems. I don't think there's any arguing that. And so you're seeing some attempts. I think there's one bill in the House in regards to social media and parental consent for minors. So I think that's probably what spurred that bill, is that overarching reality that I do think there's a direct link to mental health problems with cell phones and kids.
I'd be fine with banning cell phones in schools completely. I think I'd vote for that.
We've got 5 minutes left. I'm sorry I couldn't we had a number of kind of duplicate questions. There are 2 or 3 topics we weren't able to get to. I'm sorry for that, but I want to give each of you a chance, a few minutes to close. Carter, you mentioned a subject that I don't have a question on that hasn't come up yet. You want to take that?
Yeah, I figured we'd get a question about SSA and teacher pay. So if you guys are okay with that, I'll touch on what we're doing with that. Typically, SSA is to be set 30 days after the governor's condition of the state.
Would you explain what SSA is?
Yeah, SSA is state supplemental aid to our schools. So we will set a percentage that we will grow SSA, which is the state allocation outside of property taxes to school districts. And so that number is in code supposed to be set 30 days after the governor's condition of the state. I believe 30 days was yesterday. I think most superintendents are planning on 2.5%, so they're not just like completely in the dark on where to go with budgeting. I think the governor's made it clear. I think we've kind of made it clear that 2.5% is probably where we're going to be at. But the reason why this conversation is different from other years is we're also talking about a very large allocation when it comes to teacher pay. And that conversation has to be together. It's still ongoing. We're still talking with the Senate, still talking with the governor. And so we're not going to rush out and tell you a number that probably is going to change. I think actually that's more harmful to the schools than it is than missing a deadline. So the proposal for teacher pay would be a $94 million additional appropriation that would go directly to teachers. It would set a $50,000 statutory minimum for teacher pay in the state. I think that would put us at one of the highest in the nation, top 5. And I think when you incorporate cost of living across the country, we would actually probably be number 1 when it comes to teacher pay. It would also set $62,000 for teachers with 12 years of experience. Just speaking with the Panorama School District, they have 75 teachers, only 10 of them make $68,000. So this would be, especially for our rural schools, quite a jump in pay for a lot of teachers. And this is a priority of mine. I think our teachers deserve a pay raise. I think this is doable. I think that with the Republican budgeting practices over the last 10 years, we are sitting in a place that we can afford it. And I think the teachers are extremely deserving of it. And so we'll continue that conversation. But that's why SSA has been delayed, because with the $94 million in new appropriations to teacher salaries, plus a 2.5% increase in SSA, that would actually come out to like 5.5%, I believe. So it would be a very large increase in education funding this year.
So which penal facility do we send you to for not making the deadline?
State, that'd be the state institution or something, I don't know.
Jesse, do you have some final remarks?
Sure. One thing in regards to human resource issues, the governor did say that she supports 12 months postpartum Medicaid coverage, and I'm in favor of that. We just passed out a human resources last week, a shell bill, or a start conversation bill. The one thing that it does differently though is Iowa is just one of a few states that doesn't cover the full 12 months afterwards, but we're one of the most generous when it comes to income eligibility. So that's the kind of the trade-off of our policies in the past. So I think the Senate Republicans on that committee are in favor of the 12 months, but then lower that income eligibility from 93,000 to 53,000. So again, I'm excited that the conversation is moving forward and going forward with that. The other bill that I was on that I think is relevant to this district, one thing when I was down in Perry is I saw some of the people that were involved in the situation that served the school and stuff, and I was talking to one pastor that is a school bus driver, and he's got the proper relationships with the kids. He's just a wealth of just great services for the school, and so that's kind of driven some of my thoughts on the school chaplain bill. I'm sure you've heard that about that bill, and all it does is allow school districts to hire a school chaplain if they want. We have school chaplains in other government entities, and when I saw that situation in Perry, it kind of just light bulb went off of that. There's a classic situation where that school could easily hire that pastor to provide some other services, mental health services, whatever, because a lot of local pastors, not every pastor, but there's quite a few pastors that have other talents that they can provide or services. So, but again, that just allows the school board to make that choice. Lastly, I'd really like to hit on this point that since serving in office, it's given me an opportunity to see what other states do. I'm able to go to a couple other conservative conferences that allows me to talk to other states. And one thing I really appreciate about the state of Iowa is our number of school districts. Hawaii, for example, has one school district that's appointed by the governor for the entire state of Hawaii. I mean, imagine that situation. Our minds would just be blown here in Iowa if we had that. In Florida, they have 70 school districts that are elected by, the school boards are elected by the people there. Here in Iowa, we have 320. And so in this post-school choice world, regardless of what you feel about the school choice issue, now my sole focus on the education committee is empower the school districts. Whether that's the AEA conversation, whether that's just like that school chaplain, it just allows the school districts to have another tool in the toolbox. But those are great positions, honorable positions, and the more responsibility that we can give those school districts, I think we have a healthier state as a result. So right now we have silos for their funding and a lot of boundaries around how they can spend their dollars. I want to start taking those boundaries down and just allow them to have that flexibility. So with that, we're at 11:02.
Yep.
So
Thank you very much.
so much.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you, Jesse and Carter and Rick, for moderating. And I want to thank all of you for coming here and participating in local government. And I want to remind you that we will meet again the first Saturday in March at 10 o'clock.
Thank you, guys.